Moscow accuses Ukraine of an attack on the bridge linking Russia to Crimea that officials say left 2 people dead.
Soaring temperatures set to continue across southern Europe, with warnings that millions of people may be at risk.
Moscow's accused Ukraine of being behind explosions on the bridge linking Crimea to Russia that officials say left 2 people dead. Few details of the incident have emerged, but photos on Russian social media sites purported to show damage to one lane of the roadway and a car with its front end smashed. The attack happened early on Monday morning.
Сегодня утром у нас всех началось с информации о чрезвычайном происшествии, которое произошло на Крымском мосту. Мы все увидели с вами на видео в интернете пострадавшего легковой автомобиль с белгородскими номерами. Какая информация есть на сегодняшний момент? Пострадала девочка, ранение средней тяжести, находится уже под присмотром врачей. Самое тяжелое, ее родители погибли, папа, мама.
The bridge, which spans the Kerch Strait, was damaged in October by a truck bomb and required months of repairs before resuming full service. The crossing carries both road and rail traffic and is an important supply route for Russia's war effort in Ukraine. Ukraine says fighting has intensified on the eastern front, with its forces having been put on the defensive near the city of Kupiansk. The Deputy Defence Minister added that its forces have made advances near Bakhmut, albeit slowly. Against the backdrop of continued Russian shelling, which is destroying homes and schools, Japan has reconfirmed its unshakable support for Ukraine. Speaking on the sidelines of the G20 finance ministers meeting held in India, Japan's delegate confirmed that Russian-owned assets under the G7 supervision would not be transferred until Russia pays damages to Ukraine. Meanwhile, the Russian MOD has released images purportedly showing a Russian self-propelled system firing at Ukrainian positions. Vladimir Putin claims a counter-offensive aimed at recapturing territory is not succeeding, and that attempts to break through Russian defences have failed.
The war in Ukraine looks likely to become a bone of contention at the EU Latin America summit that starts in Brussels on Monday. The last meeting of its kind took place 8 years ago now, and similar to back then, the aim is to relaunch both political and economic relations. More than 60 leaders will take part in the meeting, but positions on the conflict in Ukraine vary either side of the Atlantic.
Latin American countries have been quite hesitant in condemning Russia for a variety of reasons. One of those has to do with a more pragmatic approach. Latin American countries have their own economic ties with Russia and cannot simply cut those ties because of a war that, in their view, is happening in Europe. At the same time, they also have their own reason that comes from a tradition of being global South countries that have taken quite a solid approach of neutrality.
This divergence in views is complicating the drafting of a joint statement set to be published at the end of the summit. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will not be attending the meeting, but experts say it should serve above all to advance some of the EU's pending trade agreements, like updates to those with Chile and Mexico. The same goes for the much-anticipated Mercosur deal, with Europe still holding out for the inclusion of tougher environmental commitments.
If you take the different trade agreements that we have been discussing with the different countries of Latin America for many years, the best way of making sure that the standards for the environment are respected in Latin America is advancing and signing and ratifying those agreements. If we want Latin America to turn their backs to Europe and to look to other partners that don't share the same concern with the environment, then we just have to put them on the side.
Brussels wants to promote large-scale investment in the continent. It says it will allocate €10 billion towards this, and Spain $9.4 billion, which it hopes will be complemented by aid from other countries. And this is all with a clear objective: to reconquer one of the world's richest territories in terms of critical raw materials.
The Russian state has taken control of shares in the Russian subsidiary of French food producer Danone, according to a decree signed by Vladimir Putin on Sunday. The decree also said that Carlsberg shares in Russian-based Baltika breweries are to be transferred to state management. The Kremlin has previously warned it might seize Western assets on a temporary basis in retaliation for foreign moves against Russian companies abroad after Moscow's invasion of Ukraine.
Fires have continued to rage in the forests on La Palma on the Canary Islands, with 5,000 hectares destroyed this weekend and 4,000 people evacuated. And there appears to be no reprieve from what could be historically high temperatures for Spain. The Met Agency is forecasting a new heatwave for much of southern Europe this week.
For July, for next week, we see another heat wave reaching southern Europe with even higher temperature. And that's really an impact on climate change, on heat wave. We increase the likelihood of sequential heat wave, and it's becoming more and more difficult to cope with this frequent succession of heat waves.
In Rome, with temperatures soaring, tourists and locals search for ways to keep cool. 15 cities in Italy, most of them in the country's centre and south, are under heat advisories, signalling a high level of risk for older adults, infants and other vulnerable people.
Depuis que nous sommes arrivés, il fait très chaud ici. On a du mal à s'adapter vraiment, surtout que nous qui venons d'arriver, on se rend compte qu'il fait plus chaud par rapport à là où nous restons, chez nous en Afrique par exemple, en République démocratique du Congo. Cette chaleur se prolonge même jusque vers la nuit et nous avons même du mal parfois à dormir.
Temperatures in Rome on Tuesday are expected to be around 42 to 43 Celsius, and in Sicily and Sardinia they could reach as high as 48 Celsius. The official advice is to stay indoors and stay hydrated.
Brutally high temperatures are threatening tens of millions of Americans as numerous cities look set to break records under a relentless heat dome that has baked parts of the country all week. 38 cities across the southern and western United States are expected to record their highest ever temperatures over the next 12 hours. In some, a blistering 48 degrees Celsius is forecast. Nearly a third of Americans, about 113 million people, are currently under heat advisories from Florida to California and up to Washington state. In Southern California, 4 wildfires broke out over the weekend. The largest of the blazes, the Rabbit Fire, had burned 7,600 acres by Sunday and is 10% contained after it ignited Friday afternoon. The state's Death Valley, one of the hottest places on Earth, has already reached a sweltering 52.5 degrees Celsius with an overnight low of almost 37 degrees. Earlier this month, a man was found dead in his vehicle in Death Valley National Park.
Somewhere in the Black Mountains of Wales, an unlikely crop is being cultivated. Daffodils, which are grown at higher altitudes, hold a special power. They produce a crucial medical compound, a key component in pills to combat Alzheimer's. Recent studies reveal another potentially astonishing benefit. Early evidence shows high-altitude daffodils produce extract, which when fed to cows has the unique ability to reduce methane emissions. The challenge, to get flower crops to grow consistently on mountain tops.
We found when we tried to grow daffodils here that all the traditional practices from the daffodil industry from decades didn't work and didn't apply. In the end, we had to throw out the rule book and completely reinvent the whole process from start to finish.
The daffodil is synonymous with Wales. It's the national flower of the country. But the last place you'd expect it to be grown here is the Black Mountains. The reason it is, although it's challenging, is because these conditions are the perfect conditions to produce the crucial compound when it comes to reducing methane.
It became apparent very quickly that daffodils are packed full of very powerful bioactive compounds.
Cows and other farm animals contribute approximately 14% of human-induced climate emissions. Scientists are hopeful that as well as reducing emissions, daffodil extract can make animal digestive systems more efficient.
What we also are expecting to see is an improvement in protein utilisation, which means that we can start looking at animal diets and perhaps reducing some of the protein they're getting in because they're going to get more out of what's being fed. So that's a really promising benefit from this additive.
The UK government is now backing a 4-year trial, which, if successful, could have profound implications.
It's quite an unreal situation. In front of us now, the potential it could make to change the world on a number of levels. It's incredibly exciting and very scary.
While not the only solution to climate change, this trial has the potential to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and help slow down the increasing global temperatures. Luke Hanrahan, Euronews, Wales.
The best number 10 in the world!
Despite torrential rain, close to 20,000 people packed into Inter Miami's stadium to welcome Lionel Messi to the Florida club. Its co-founder David Beckham led the spectacular ceremony, presenting the Argentine star with the number 10 jersey. He said the moment was a dream come true. For his part, Messi said he wanted to help his new team win, something they haven't done in their past 11 matches. Inter's currently bottom of the US league. Messi's contract is believed to be worth at least €130 million.